Man, I hate Tennessee because, first of all, it's Tennessee. They low down, they dirty, they some snitches. I hate Philip-Homer. I hate their colors. I'm not a dog person. It's not that orange that you can see. Tennessee's colors is that throw-up orange. It's not that orange that you can sit with. It's that puke inside of a pumpkin orange. And I don't like pumpkins. I hate Tennessee, man.
Butch Jones, Brett Bielema, Barry Odom, Derek Mason, Gus Malzahn, Chris Peterson, Mike Leach, Dabo Sweeney. Mitch, what do all these coaches have in common?
They all lost.
You are listening to Ask the Bottle, an SEC Fancast. My name is Clint Childers. That man over there is Mitch Davis, the Georgia Peach. And Mitch, you are absolutely correct. They all lost this week. Can you believe it?
All of them. I can believe some of them. I can't really believe others. But it was an insane week, and it's changed a lot of stuff up.
Write to us at askthebottlecast@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram now at Bottlecast.
Hey-yo.
Listen and subscribe to us on iTunes and SoundCloud. Please leave us a rating and review on iTunes. That would be so wonderful. And I hope y'all like the special intro. It is Tennessee-Alabama week. And I do love that video so much of that guy ragging on Tennessee, so I had to put it in the intro just this once.
Oh, for real. No slight to Tennessee, but just the way the guy describes it is just only an SEC fan can understand that logic.
It just means more.
It sure does.
This week proved that absolutely no one is safe from Team Chaos.
Oh, never.
The Cougars up in Washington State Clemsoned it, and the Clemson Tigers totally cooed it, Mitch.
That's the best way to say it.
Given the tornado of this week's games, are there any conferences that are going to be left out of the college football playoff?
Well, yeah, I know we had talked about, so this certainly changes things for the ACC. I know we've talked about how Clemson did have a loss last year, but still made it. We'll see if they can do that again. And then I believe we had talked about the Pac-12 as well, right?
Yeah, we had a little bit depending on what happens over there.
Right.
Well, you had said, a one-loss Clemson made it last year. I think this year it all depends on what Miami does.
100%. I cannot wait to see how Miami finishes the season. That game was absolutely nuts this weekend, and they're certainly the glory pick in the ACC right now for sure.
Absolutely. Well, let's go ahead and move into our nationwide segment of games. It was really hard to pick which games to spotlight this week because we just had so many of them. A lot of top teams went down. We had a lot of really close games. The Michigan-Indiana game was close. The West Virginia-Texas Tech game was close. The Navy-Memphis game was close. There was a lot of choices, but I think we got a few good ones. Let's go ahead and start with the I was going to say the elephant in the room, but I guess the orange in the room. Number two Clemson falls at Syracuse 27-24. And I had said, based on their schedule, Mitch, that Clemson would go undefeated this year. Mm-hmm. But I forgot about their tendency to randomly and inexplicably lose games like this.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it just all comes down to that Kelly Bryant thing. People were talking about him being hurt coming into the game and not really being able to move around. And, I mean, he just got body slammed by that guy. And from a momentum standpoint, from having to put a backup in unexpectedly kind of standpoint, it just kind of turned into a mess really fast.
Yeah, and you were talking about that hit. It was really bad. Good to know that he's okay. Hope his recovery goes well. But backup Clemson quarterback is Eric Cooper. Came into the game, and, I mean, he's the backup. He couldn't really get it done on the road. Syracuse was firing on all cylinders. Quarterback Eric Dungy was unstoppable, 278 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, they were pumped.
Yeah, it was just a perfect storm.
It really was. That's the best way to describe it. And as with a lot of these games, I mean, it's tough being on the road and middle of the season, you've been grinding it out. It's just sometimes you just get punched in the mouth, and Syracuse certainly sucker punched Clemson in this one.
Well, we talked about Clemson's playoff chances, the remaining schedule. Georgia Tech, North Carolina State, which will be a really fun game. Florida State, which they'll probably win, and South Carolina, which is it's a rivalry game, so you never know how that's going to go. their biggest chance to go to 2 losses is that NC State game.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we've talked about NC State, and, they did have a loss to South Carolina, but that team is just, they can get you. I don't know. It's just like sometimes they come out and they're just lights out and a really exciting team to watch. I think I'll be interested to see if Clemson has enough gas even by the time they get to South Carolina, because, I mean, South Carolina's playing pretty well, all things considered. So,
yeah, and I think the way that both South Carolina and NC State are playing right now, I think they got their eyes kind of on that Clemson game.
Definitely. I completely agree, and we will just see how it shakes out. But I don't know. I haven't lost faith in Clemson just yet. I definitely just think that this is a big setback. I mean, LSU lost to Troy, and now they're ranked again, so who knows what's going to happen.
Oh, God. You know what? I got some thoughts on that, but I'll save them for later.
Oh, I'm sure.
Okay, well, moving right along to the Pac-12. Number 8, Washington State falls on the road to the Cal Golden Bears 37-3.
Yeah, R.I.P. to the Mike Leach dream. This was just a beatdown.
Dude, Luke Falk? What the hell was that?
So long, Heisman.
5 interceptions? Yeah, I think the Heisman hopes are probably over for you, my guy.
Definitely. That was a big open letter to the voting, like, hey, maybe next year for me. Maybe never.
Yeah, and I mean, the Cougars don't really have a run game, so when Falk throws 5 picks, you don't exactly have an offense.
And it showed.
Yes, it did. And the Cal defense, who has been playing marginal at best, totally owned this game. 9 sacks, 12 tackles for loss. We talked about the 5 picks. They had a fumble return for a touchdown. Everything you want out of your defense. I don't know where that came from.
No kidding. I mean, they were just all over it. And that's the other thing about those picks is he was just getting beaten up. I mean, 9 sacks is absolutely ridiculous. That should never happen.
Yeah, that's insane. That's like Austin Allen
Yeah,
level right there.
But, yeah, definitely not the performance you want to see from your senior quarterback. But I don't know if I can blame him. I mean, sometimes that stuff just happens. I don't know if you watched the Detroit-New Orleans NFL game this past week, but a similar thing happened to Matt Stafford where it's just one of those days where he just kept getting just demolished.
Yeah, you're right. That's just an off day. Maybe it was just an off day for. He might come back next week and totally ball out.
Yeah, who knows? It's just unfortunate that, in this league, it happens once or twice, and so long playoff hopes.
Yep. Well, let's go ahead and move on to their in-state rivals. The number 5 Washington Huskies lose to Arizona State 13-7. Arizona State wins on a crazy 4th down conversion. Did you see that?
Yeah, that was absolutely insane. I watched a replay.
Yeah, the ball went through multiple players' hands before it was caught and ran down into the red zone. We've both talked about how we were on Washington this year.
Oh, absolutely. I was really high on Washington, and I think this is just one of those things where, we see it's just like with Cal. I mean, there's these teams that aren't necessarily, great this year. Arizona State and Cal both unranked, but historically good programs, and you come play against them on the road, and they could beat you.
Yeah, I mean, Jake Browning didn't produce at all in this game.
No.
Myles Gaskin ran for just 67 yards. I mean, I don't know what else to say. It's just I don't know if Washington underperformed or if Arizona State was just ready.
Well, it's one of those things where I think it's fair to, at this point in the season, it's fair that the two could potentially play on the same level. And it's sort of like, and it's just one of those things where with the 4th down thing, I mean, how can you predict that? You know what I mean? So do I think that Washington should have put up more points in this game? Absolutely. But when it comes down to it, when you're in the thick of it, I mean, only a few things separate Washington from a win in this one. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And because of this, the Pac-12 North is still totally up in the air. Washington has 1 loss. Washington State has 1 loss. Stanford has 1 conference loss. So that's anybody's division right now. USC is kind of, I don't want to say they've totally clinched it, but they've basically clinched the South with that win over Utah. So we'll just have to see where that conference ends up.
Definitely. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to figure it out. But I'm not done on Washington. I don't think that they're totally, I mean, do I think they'll make the playoffs? No, but, we'll see what happens.
Well, backtracking to the ACC for the monsoon game.
What a game. This game, similar sort of ending, kind of in a way. This game was absolutely nuts. Definitely classic monsoon game. It was insane.
Georgia Tech loses on the road to Miami, the number 11 Miami Hurricanes, 25-24, I guess I should say. Just like last week, Miami went on an epic fourth quarter drive to seal the game. They were down 24-16 late. They would roll down the field and score, but fail on the 2 points, leaving them down 24-22 to Georgia Tech. After a Georgia Tech 3-and-out, Miami gets the ball back and converts on a tip pass, sets up a 24-yard field goal to win in the pouring rain.
Yeah, just nuts. And I mean, Miami is just fun to watch. It's just insane, especially given the way the ACC is right now. I mean, they're like the glory play, you know?
They are, and I think it's just, again, I think Mark Richt is a really good coach. I mean, he had struggles last year with it being his first year, but this is year 2 for him, and I think they should, did they move into the top 10 this week?
I believe so. Let me just double check.
I believe they did. I think they're at number 8, right?
Here, I'm pulling it up.
Oh, okay. Well, the ACC as a conference right now is very interesting to me because
number 8 AP, number 8 7 coaches.
There you go. NC State sits atop the Atlantic with no conference losses after Clemson dropped that one to Syracuse, while Miami and Virginia, of all teams, are unbeaten in the Coastal.
Yeah. Which is crazy. And plus, isn't Virginia is unranked?
Yeah, Virginia is unranked, yes. But they are unbeaten in conference play. So we'll have to see if they can kind of continue that trajectory. They're playing better football than they have in the past.
No doubt. Oh, no doubt.
We'll have to just... I'm excited to see, if the Cavaliers can kind of cause some ruckus.
Right. I do think, though, I mean, in my opinion, it's Miami's game to lose at this point. I mean, we'll see if they can keep it up. They got a lot to go, but it'll be interesting for sure.
All right, man. Well, let's move into the tried and true, the one and only Southeastern Conference. Mitch, you want to start us off with an East game?
Oh, absolutely. I think first off, I'm going to get into the South Carolina-Tennessee game down in Knoxville this past weekend. The Gamecocks ended up pulling this one out in thrilling fashion, 15-9.
Yeah, thrilling.
It was very exciting for a hot minute, literally for the last 60 seconds of the game.
For the last minutes, yes.
But honestly, though, this game was bizarre. You know, these two teams are in very different spots. You have a South Carolina team who's very much still involved in the SEC East picture, definitely still in the hunt, right behind Kentucky at this point. And UT, who's, at this point, it's sort of like, are you thinking this is just the rebuilding year we kind of thought it would be, and we're just going to be, showcasing our young talent, trying to keep as many guys as we can and move on to next year? Or is it going to be, okay, this has been so bad, Butch is getting the boot, he's out, and we have no idea what's going to happen next year,
I think this year for UT is less of a rebuilding year and more of the floors kind of falling out year.
Yeah, it's like a redefining year in its entirety.
Yeah, I think, you're starting a freshman quarterback. I think the players are still really into it. I think they still want to win. They still have that fight, but I think everybody in the program just kind of has that lame duck cloud kind of hanging over them right now.
Right, where it's sort of like, I don't pay to see this team play like this, especially given how good their recruiting classes have been.
Yep.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, speaking of recruits and guys that are studs, I just want to talk about real quick just how good John Kelly is, the big bright spot for this Tennessee offense, and just what a bummer it is that this guy is essentially at his college career peak at this point in this season with this offense. But he's a lot of fun to watch regardless.
Yes, John Kelly. I've said it. I've said it a couple of times, I think, on this show. He's usually the best player on the field.
Yeah, and I think he deserves to be up there with the top running backs in the SEC, which is a serious list of guys. So
I think maybe the only time he hasn't been the best player on the field is probably that Georgia game.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, and it was crazy because he even had the biggest play of the day for the Vols, and he, other than, he had that huge catch, and the ball got stripped out. It's just, I feel like that's just an indicator of what this season has been like for the team.
And what it's been like for him.
No kidding. It seems like every single time he touches the ball, we talked about he's not the biggest guy ever, but he just mows people over. It's like his stiff arm is like it's made of lead. And
we were talking about that stiff arm, and It's like truck stick.
Yeah, I don't know. He was held in check for most of the game. You know, he only had 16 carries for 58 yards in what was a pretty anemic day for UT overall. They definitely couldn't get the pass going, at least till the end of the day. He did have, it was insane. If he had caught it, it would have been like ridiculous. They had that one trick play where Josh Smith caught the screen and then threw opposite field to him wide open in the end zone. Well, I wouldn't say he's wide open, but he had a few yards. And he like fell back. The ball was just a little overthrown, and he got one hand on it. If he had pulled it in, it would have been nuts. But he fell. And I think if they had scored, they probably would have won the game just because of that. But this game, just in general, we talked about old-fashioned monsoon games. This was just one of those old-fashioned field goal battles. I mean, it was just a defensive struggle all the way to the end for both teams. Shockingly enough, South Carolina went 3 for 3 on their field goals. Parker White getting some serious redemption, which we certainly haven't seen. He was 4 for 11 going into this game. And we had Jake Bentley, who was pretty much held in check by an underrated, I would say, albeit somewhat injured UT defense. He went just 15-24. And the Vols, I mean, they led at the half, 9-3. You know, it was just field goal after field goal. They had 3 in the first half. South Carolina's 1. But South Carolina kind of broke it open when A.J. Turner finally scored on a 20-yard tough run. A.J. Turner getting a good percentage of carries after Rico Dowdle went out and is having leg surgery for a fractured bone in his leg. So we've talked about South Carolina's running struggles, but Rico Dowdle joins the list of strong South Carolina players that have had injuries. It's crazy. So he's expected to miss most of the season, if not all of it. But A.J. Turner stepped in pretty aptly in his place, going 14 for 86. He averaged 6.1 yards a carry. This Tennessee defense, again, they are solid, but they do, allow a pretty good chunk of running yardage every game. That tied the game at 9 in the third because, of course, in the usual South Carolina special teams fashion that we're used to seeing, they botched the extra point after. Did you see that?
Yeah, botched extra points are kind of becoming the norm in this conference.
Yeah, right.
It seems like
weird. Botch snap, tries to throw it, and just no way. But so yeah, pretty exciting though in terms of this game. I mean, it tied it at 9. And South Carolina went on to make 2 field goals of their own and hold to their 6-point lead. Even as Tennessee got extremely close late in the game, which I'm about to dive headfirst into that whole fiasco.
That offensive masterclass, you mean?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. A true. If you ever want to know how to score points, watch that film and you'll know exactly what not to do. But first of all, I just want to say UT couldn't get anything done in the red zone all day. And that, of course, why would that change when the game was completely on the line at the very end of it? Some extremely poor clock management led to a very rushed couple of passing attempts for Gorentano. And honestly, I don't know what anyone would expect from that. Like, sure, you want the guy to come in and be a phenom right out of the gate, but I mean, this is his first start. He's a young quarterback. It's a tough spot to be in. Play calling definitely didn't do him any favors.
Play calling made it way worse.
Right. When they got down there and they had the first down, they should have just spiked it with 22 seconds to go, regrouped, dialed up some, variants, just come up with a game plan.
Well, for me, the biggest problem with the way that they called the game down there at the end, what you're doing is you're giving the ball to your freshman quarterback and telling him to make a play. Give it to John Kelly.
Give it to anybody. I mean, yes,
give it to
exactly.
somebody who's proven. Give it to somebody who can win the game for you. Don't give it to the freshman. Don't put him in that situation.
Yeah, for a number of reasons. I mean, first of all, there's no way you can put that much on that guy's back. I mean, you want to protect him. You want to protect him mentally and physically, and that kind of thing is just not. It's just not a good position to put yourself in. But that's what I'm saying is if they had just spiked it, and we could say that's on him or whoever. But if he had just spiked it, they regroup, they dial up something different. Instead, what you end up with these rushed, brutal pass attempts. The Vols, by the way, because they didn't spike it, they burned 10 seconds off the clock, which is just ridiculous. And they even got a lucky break, too. On the next play, after they burned that much, he threw a corner of the end zone shot to Callaway, and they drew a pass interference, and they ended up on the 2-yard line. 2-yard line, and they ended up with 3 plays with 9 seconds to go. That's crazy. Garantano, with 9 seconds left, threw the ball away, which, I mean, I get it, you don't want to throw a pick, and South Carolina was bringing the heat, but, I mean, it just serves the point that much more that why did any of this happen. And then next play, he gets another play with 4 seconds left, batted down 1 second. They got 1 second left. It's been batted down. They have a second. They just should have had something in the bag, like you said, like a screen with some blockers. Instead, though, after being gifted one last play with 1 second to go, they choose to essentially make Garantano throw into tight man coverage and try to force the ball into a tight window just over by the right sideline at the end of the end zone. I don't get it. They basically ran the same play over and over again. Those quick slants, the box out, and the corner of the end zone. I mean, it just clearly didn't work. The South Carolina secondary is better than that. They deserve more respect than that. I don't know how much they just let Garantano just do his thing, but I just don't understand it. Like we're saying, just try anything different. Give Kelly some blockers and hit him with a screen. I don't know if you know this, but Garantano, number 4 dual threat quarterback in the 2016 ESPN 300. Where is that in the offensive scheme? Why not give him some opportunities to run in the end zone? Obviously, I know he had a good amount of carries in this game, but I'm just saying, like, man, it's like these guys have never seen college football in the last 5 years, and they don't see what works. It's crazy to me.
Well, and never mind the fact that you've got the number 1 recruit in the country on your offensive line.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, what? And the blocking is ridiculous. I mean, he was getting slammed. You know, we had a batted pass. He's basically being thrown down while he threw the ball away. And I don't know. It was just frustrating to watch. I'm sure it was frustrating for everyone in Knoxville to see that. I think this game was very winnable, even with a freshman quarterback making his first start. I mean, I think the guy's good. I do personally think, this may not be a super popular opinion at this time, but I do think that Garantano has what it takes to get better, but the numbers definitely didn't show it.
I mean, he's brand new. He's
Right,
like a little malleable little baby freshman. I mean, he can do. He's got the rest of his career.
No doubt. And I mean, they recruited him for a reason. Like I said, one of the best dual threats in his class. But just some quick takeaways for UT, as we've talked about. So first of all, we talk about Garantano, and the reason why I say that the numbers aren't really that encouraging is more than half of his passing yards came on that final drive of the game, which is crazy because he went 11 for 18 with 133 yards. He did a good job, though. I mean, he didn't turn the ball over. That's certainly been an issue with Dormady, but the dude was sacked 7 times. And like you said about that recruit on the offensive line, that's just not going to win you games. It's
not really acceptable with that kind of talent.
Exactly. It's the same thing with Wa State. I mean, if your guy's getting hit that much, what do you expect him to do, especially in his first start? I just think that they need to I don't know if the play calling was just too geared to Dormady's style of play or what, but they just need to figure out more creative ways to block for him and to get him chances to run, take the pressure off Kelly so they can, use him a bit more dynamically. And they're just developing a young quarterback, and that's just, it has all kinds of growing pains, especially when you sort of switch schemes a bit. But I mean, I feel like they recruited him because he, on paper, has a similar, dual threat ability to Dobbs, and they should be able to capitalize on that. So it's wild. Anyway, another fun thing, speaking of John Kelly, the Vols ran 14 times for 90 yards in the first quarter. Rest of the game, guess how much? 25 times for 20 yards. That is bad.
Yeah, that's really bad.
That's horrible. And honestly, my biggest takeaway from this, maybe Larry Scott's not the answer at offensive coordinator.
Maybe.
The last and only time he called plays was as a co-OC at Sebring High School back in 2004. He's been positional otherwise, and he was the interim at Miami before Richt. But I mean, I don't know, man. That just doesn't add up for me.
Yeah, was that part of Butch's championship dreams right there? Part of his master plan was bring this guy whose last experience was in an 04. That'll take us.
Anyway, yeah, it's just going to be interesting to see the Vols going from here on out and see how they handle this year, see how the administration handles Butch, see how the fans continue to handle Butch. But I think we can both agree that the play calling is one of the main culprits here, along with some injuries and some indecisiveness at different positions. If I'm going to go on to South Carolina's takeaways, which are pretty relevant at this point, you're now third in the East, by no means out of contention for the SEC championship, and definitely still in the hunt for a solid bowl game. With Vandy, Georgia, and Florida on the horizon, it's going to be tough, but it's not impossible. I think all the Gamecocks have to do is just state their case.
It's going to take Kentucky and Georgia kind of dropping some games, just that they shouldn't. I don't think that South Carolina is going to win the East. I do think South Carolina is only going to lose one more game this year.
That's a very accurate.
And I think it's to Georgia.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I try to kind of get both ends of the spectrum, but with the Kentucky loss, I do think that it'd be a lot of crazy stuff would have to happen for them to bump up there. But yeah,
I think there's a good chance that maybe they could tie Kentucky.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think I agree with you though. I think they beat Vandy. This team should. I mean, based on the way Florida's playing and based on the way this defense can play, I think it's very reasonable to say that they could win 2 of those 3 games. But we'll see. And then they got to play Clemson, so who knows?
Oh, I forgot about the Clemson game.
I know, right?
Yeah. Never mind, maybe.
Anyway, South Carolina gets a bye next week before they host Vandy, which wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if that game is very similar to this one. But we will see if the home field advantage will be enough to lead the Gamecocks over a Vandy team that has now lost 4 conference games in a row and yet to win a game in the SEC. So I expect the Gamecocks to win this one by a score or 2 in a couple weeks. But yeah, now they get to enjoy the bye. And unfortunately for Tennessee, of all places, next week, guess where they're going?
I think that'd be Tuscaloosa.
That is correct.
Yep.
I'm not even going to waste time here. The Tide are going to go off at home in this game. I expect the Tide to win 61-14. If I'm Butch Jones, I'm going to pull out every single stop I got, and I'm going to pray a lot. And that's about it as far as what I can say for that game.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think 61 points, that's a lot of points. That's 20 more than they scored on Arkansas, but you know what?
I'm trying to give hot takes.
I don't blame you for a second. Really.
I mean,
I don't
think
blame you for a single
UT's
second.
defense is better than that, but I don't feel good about this game at all.
No, not at all. I'm right there with you. I don't feel good for Tennessee one bit going into this week.
No, but we will see. So you want to kick it back over to the West?
Sure. I just want to talk to Auburn real quick, if that's okay. Just me and Auburn one-on-one.
I'll leave the room, and you just let me know when you're done.
I trusted you, Auburn. I said you'd go undefeated until the Iron Bowl. It's not enough to routinely score 40-plus points on my Hogs. You have to make me look like an idiot on my own podcast, too.
But Clint, LSU's, they're pretty good. They're underrated. They just got beat by Troy. We didn't know. We got punched in the mouth. That's me being Auburn.
That's your Auburn impression. Is impeccable. LSU hosts Auburn in Death Valley and wins 27-23 over number 10 Auburn. Mm-hmm. Yeah, about the AP poll. I'm a little salty about it.
Mm-hmm.
I know I shouldn't put a ton of stock in rankings, but still, this pisses me off just a little bit. Okay? I'm sorry, but there's no way LSU should be ranked. Now, this is just my opinion. Someone much smarter than me could probably argue. But you lose to Troy, a Sunbelt team at home. You barely win against Florida, who we've now seen is nothing special. And then you get a game handed to you by Auburn, and suddenly you're ranked? Like, no way. I'm sorry. This is still the same team that lost to Troy. Like, I know you said that they're angry, they're fired up, but they still lost to Troy. This is not enough of a resume to put them in the top 25. I'm sorry, it's just not.
The win I see as way more plausible. The ranking I don't see plausible at all.
No.
I think that's a historical ranking, if anything. I think that's LSU's a proverbial good team.
It's a namesake thing. I'm sorry. It's just not enough of it. You put that resume on any other team, they don't. I mean, well, a few. But you put that resume on. I mean, you put that resume on Ole Miss or something. Like they're not. Doubt. No, it ain't happening.
No doubt.
Anyway, so that was just a little bit of salt for me.
Sure. Yeah, I completely agree with you.
But let's go ahead and just move on to my next point. This was a choke job of all choke jobs, if I've ever seen one. Auburn wrapped that pretty 20-point lead up, tied it off with the bow.
Looked like another banner day.
They just handed it over to LSU, and they went, no, that's okay. You can win this game. 50% of this loss is on Jarrett Stidham. He went 9 of 26 for just 165 yards. Dude, that is terrible. Compared to your past couple of games of going for over 300 yards, that's just garbage. Like, what are you doing, man?
Oh, absolutely.
The other 50% of this loss is on the Auburn defense. Because after going up 20 points, they just went limp. They allowed 3 touchdowns, 1 through the air, 1 on the ground, and 1 on an 83-yard punt return by DJ Chark, who is solidifying himself as a good special teams player.
Yeah.
But still.
They have some playmakers, but you're right. I mean, this is the kind of thing that as a Georgia fan I fear from Georgia is you come out and you be your dominant self, and then you just sort of fall apart weirdly and just, I don't know.
Well, it was a total team breakdown in the second half for Auburn.
Yeah.
Of Auburn's 354 total yards of offense on the day, take a guess at how many of those were in the second half.
It's got to be under 100.
73.
Ugh.
They earned 73 yards in the second half.
Jeez.
Guess how many points they scored in the second half, Mitch?
I'm going to go with none.
You are correct, sir. None. Conversely, the Auburn defense, who played pretty well up to this point, all things considered, I think we can all agree on that, gave up 124 yards and 13 points to LSU in the second half. They let Danny freaking Etling throw for over 200 yards while just completing 50% of his passes.
Oof.
They let a wide receiver in Russell Gage chew him up on the ground.
Russell Gage, I'm going to go ahead and say, that dude rocks. He is so good.
He is good. But they let him run as much on the ground as Darius Geis. They both had 71 yards.
That's unacceptable. I think we're going to see Russell getting plenty of handoffs from now on.
So that makes it 9 straight times Auburn has lost to LSU in Death Valley.
Whoa. That's brutal.
Right?
I didn't know it was that much. That is so bad.
Yep, that's 9 straight losses in Death Valley for them.
And key word, that's in Death Valley, so that's over a lot more years than just 9.
Yes, sir. They're currently 5-2 on the year. The remaining schedule is as follows. Arkansas, that's a win. More on that later. Louisiana Monroe, that's a win. Texas A&M, that's a win. UGA, that's a loss most likely. Alabama, that's a loss. That'll put them at 8-4. Is 8-4 good enough to keep Gus around for another year? I mean, God forbid they lose to A&M. If they lose to them, Georgia, and Bama, that's 7-5, and he's as good as gone at that point.
Well, it's different, obviously. Different history, different everything. But I see kind of a rigged scenario here where the fans, I mean, you can't be satisfied with that every year.
No, I mean, he went to the national championship his first year. I mean, he lost it to Jameis Winston, but...
Yeah, I mean, he also...
still...
Yeah, I mean, totally. But it's also like Cam.
That's true.
Was that... I've always get that timeline messed up.
No. Cam was 2010 with Gene Chizik, right? They had
right.
Nick Marshall was their quarterback for that national championship year.
That's right. Man, remember those days? That's crazy. I forget.
Yeah.
Gene Chizik does a different...
That seems like a whole nother lifetime, doesn't it?
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Well, regardless, I don't know. The Gus thing is... I go back and forth on Gus, is my point. And,
yeah, well, write us in, Auburn fans. Let us know how you feel about Gus. Is a 7-5 year, 8-4 year? I mean, is that going to keep him around?
Yeah, rip me apart for thinking that he coached Cam.
Yeah, rip Mitch apart. We'd all like to see that. I'm just kidding, buddy. Next week, Auburn gets a cupcake game in Fayetteville against Arkansas. Unfortunately for Arkansas, I think Auburn's going to be pretty pissed after this loss. At least they should be.
Oh, no doubt. I'd be furious.
And they're going to take it out on Arkansas. I mean, we know Gus Malzahn has that whole history with Arkansas. Brett Bielema kind of called him out on his offense and says that he hurts guys running that hurry-up no huddle, which is just stupid.
Yeah, that's just an excuse. I mean,
the whole Houston Nutt thing happened when he was OC there.
Right.
He always takes it out on Arkansas, and he's really going to this week, I think. I know that Arkansas's got this shiny QB, more on him later, but there's no way it'll be enough. I chalked this game up to an Auburn win after they played Clemson close, and Arkansas embarrassed themselves against TCU that same week. Auburn wins 45-13.
All right. Wow.
In my opinion.
We'll see if it's a we're angry, let's inflict as much pain as humanly possible, or a kind of a hangover game. But I could see that. I could see it being I don't know, even, I know I'm preaching to the choir in every single way, but I don't even know how to feel about Arkansas at this point, so go figure.
You don't need to feel very good. As for LSU, they head to Oxford next week to play Ole Miss, and the Rebels are coming off a home win against a Vandy team that we used to think was pretty good at best. So, I mean, they should have at least some confidence coming into this one. It'll be interesting to see how this LSU defense reacts to a passing attack that just put up 57 points last week.
Yeah.
I'm taking LSU 27-23, ironically the same score as this past week, but it's going to be up to their defense to stop Shea Patterson, who currently leads the SEC in total offense.
Is that right?
That is correct.
Whoa. Well, I don't know. If I'm Ole Miss, I'd kind of like to be going on the road at this point. Let's just go ball out and show them what we're made of. I do think, though, the Tigers, I mean, if the Tigers lose this one, then Auburn should feel horrible. That's awful. And Florida as well. Honestly, both of them. I'd be like, well, what are we even doing? Why are we ranked?
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Because then, or then that just means that the SEC is completely, totally unpredictable more than ever. But I digress.
Well, I want to hear you talk about the East some more now.
All right. Well, why don't we talk about? I'm going to let you choose. Do you want me to talk about Georgia, Missouri now, or you want me to talk about Florida A&M?
Let's keep it rolling on these close games. Let's go Florida A&M.
Nice. That's what I was leaning to. Okay. So, Florida losing their second game in a row by 2 points or less falls to the Texas A&M Aggies 17-19. This was a huge game for A&M. I'm just going to say that first. Who is absolutely vying for a spot in a bowl, vying for a spot in the West. I mean, I don't really know why I even say that with Alabama, but you get what I mean. They're in the picture. They're
vying for second place.
Yeah, right, exactly. And with the Auburn loss, obviously that helps a lot. But Florida basically, I guess at this point, just trying to stay in the middle of the pack in the East. But regardless, the two of these teams have played. They've been known for extremely entertaining games, very dramatic, very close, and this game did not disappoint at all in that department. Even though it was sort of like if the South Carolina-Tennessee game was insanely exciting, but with the same sort of point total, you know?
Yeah.
It was, but regardless, on paper, it seemed like Florida played extremely well in this game on the whole. I mean, they had 17 first downs to A&M's 10. They dominated on the ground. They had 242 yards in the day. I wouldn't say absolutely dominated, but, you know, for playing a good defense, that's pretty solid. On 42 totes at almost 6 yards a carry, 2 touchdowns on the ground. I mean, it's just the same thing we've been talking about. Malik Davis and LaMichael Pirine just doing what they do. The Gators kept a lead through a pretty sizable portion of this game, and they had some long possessions, and they definitely dominated time of possession. Also, credit to Florida's defense, who just completely shut down the A&M run game in this one, much like Alabama did, which is why they ended up winning that one, limiting Keith Ford to just 22 yards on 9 carries.
That's a big stat.
That's a super small usage and really poor numbers for a guy that runs as tough as he does.
Yeah, because the important thing for that A&M offense is spreading the ball around. They've only got a couple guys they can really rely on. So when you shut one of them down like that, it's good. It's surprising they didn't win.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they even they had a nice pick in the first quarter and after a Felipe Franks pick, which I'm going to get into. But it's just one of those things where you can get all the yards you want, but the Aggies they had more opportunities to kick field goals. They had more opportunities to score. And, I mean, this game was super close. Obviously, it could go either way. But I felt like, while the Aggies were behind for a good bit of this game, they did seem to be, I don't know, they just seemed like they played differently. And they had 3, Florida kind of came out and was sort of leading early. And then we had the 3 unanswered field goals by the Aggies in the fourth quarter. And, of course, the pick off Franks to ice it. Even though it looks close, like I said, A&M gave themselves more opportunities to score, and they just completely beat up Felipe Franks with 5 sacks on this game and 2 picks. This team, I found out they had the most sacks in the SEC, I heard on the broadcast. Pretty wild.
That's pretty crazy for losing such huge players on the defensive line.
Right. First pick overall. I mean, Myles Garrett gone, and you're still. So it just goes to show that there's something in this program that makes those players as great as they are. But or just the recruiting is amazing for pass rushers. But I just wanted to point out that the QB numbers in this game really quick. So they were both similar for opposite reasons. You had Kellen Mond, who went 8 for 24. Which is brutal.
Oh,
Completing a third of his passes for 180 yards and 1 pick. While Felipe Franks, 17 for 26, not so bad, for only 129 yards, no touchdowns, and 2 picks.
See, it's the not scoring and the throwing interceptions. It doesn't necessarily matter how many passes you complete if you don't score any points.
Right, because at least Mond had a rushing touchdown on the day. And Franks rushed for 82 yards himself, but, I mean, the first pick he threw wasn't so costly as, Kellen threw a pick right after that. But the late game pick, I mean, that's all you really got to say. It's one of those things that makes the Florida fan go, I wonder maybe Luke Del Rio does need to come in and finish games, even despite the Tennessee huge last-second win. But regardless, I mean, the Gators kind of sealed their own fate with that one. I think some big takeaways here are those Florida gray uniforms. Even the guys doing all the highlights I rewatched this week were saying that they just look terrible.
Burn them with fire.
Super gross.
Burn them with fire.
I don't think that helped anybody.
Burn them with fire. They're the ugliest thing. Did you see? Okay, somebody on Reddit, I believe, or Twitter, said that they skewed the color. They took a still shot from the game and they kind of color shifted it a little bit to match what someone that was colorblind would see. And they said that for the colorblind, these uniforms made the Florida players virtually invisible. Because when you skew the color, it's the same as the field, and so it was just invisible players.
Whoa, that's crazy.
Yeah,
that's very weird.
And with kind of how cloudy it was, it's just I don't know, man. It's just ugly. It's just ugly.
Just don't do that.
Yeah, I know.
But also another, I mean, I guess you could call that a takeaway, but another takeaway, is it Franks that's the problem, or is he not getting good protection, or what? He's now scored 0 touchdowns in the month of October and has been sacked 10 times after only being sacked 4 times and throwing 3 touchdowns and only 1 pick in the other 5 games this year. Obviously, he hasn't played in some of those games.
I think it's a nice little combination of the two.
I agree, and some good competition and some good pass rushes, but I mean that's just not good. They're just not getting it done unless it's on the ground right now. So I don't really know what you do with that. I mean, it's sort of like you're going to win the games when you play weak front sevens because your guys are going to run all over them. But I think McElwain does a good job of getting a lot of people involved and doing a lot of trick stuff. And I just think that they just couldn't get it done. The Aggies just were ready for them on defense.
Yeah.
But going off of that, some Aggies takeaways. If you can get Christian Kirk the ball on punts, receptions, whatever, you're going to have a pretty good day. They should just focus, like you said, they've got a select number of really strong, consistent playmakers. And, I mean, Kirk, with the 40-yard reception that set up a field goal and the 43-yard punt return set up 2 field goals that basically won the Aggies the game. The last one was basically the game winner, other than the pick icing it. But, just stick to your playmakers. I mean, it's not always pretty, but Kellen Mond, he wins games as long as the defense can hang tough. I think this is a weird team for me in A&M right now. It's a team that has showed some life on offense. We've definitely both agreed that they're no offensive powerhouse. But if their defense hangs tough and keeps them in games, I mean, you can get it done.
Yeah, you might only get it done by 2 points, but a W's a W, man.
That's for sure. But back on Florida's end of things, after all of our talk about Jim McElwain being this magician who can just magically create late-game victories, we've now seen the Gators drop 2 games in a row by 2 points or less. The Gators get a much-needed bye before facing the undefeated Bulldogs, who are also going to be on bye in Jacksonville for the world's largest outdoor cocktail party.
Yeah, we talked about this game being both teams off byes, which is what excited us in the very first episode of this show. I'm still just as excited for it right now.
No doubt.
I think I'm still calling Georgia in it, and I'm calling them big. But Florida getting a bye week is huge.
Well, we'll see if the Gators can bring it. I definitely will not be surprised if they do, because just like every A-list SEC rivalry, anything could happen in any given year.
You're
I
right.
think that there's no telling what's going to happen. I completely agree with you. I think you said it best, where I'm no less excited about the matchup than I would be if, obviously, if Florida was undefeated, it'd be absolutely ridiculous. But I'm no less excited about the game itself. So yeah, Texas A&M moves up second in the West. They're going on by themselves. In a few weeks, they're going to host Mississippi State and then Auburn in back-to-back weeks, which is just, I mean, that's like lick your chops, good matchups. That's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
I think the Mississippi State game is going to be a lot closer than the Auburn game, but I think they'll both be good games.
I agree with you. I think, but see, I'm curious because of LSU's offense and what they just did and what their defense just did with Auburn. So for me, both of them are like, I could see them both being one-score games, but that's just personal opinion. We're just going to see, though, regardless, after that Auburn game, who deserves that number 2 spot in the West. And at this point, like we said, maybe it doesn't matter in terms of West, SEC championship representation stuff, but we'll see. We'll see who deserves that spot regardless.
Okay, well, let's move it back over to the West then.
Let's do it.
I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my Saturday, how I spent my Saturday, Mitch.
All right.
I spent my Saturday afternoon at the Nashville Beer and Wine Festival. So I was in a really good place when this game started. The game I'm talking about is the Arkansas-Alabama game. Arkansas goes into Tuscaloosa to face number 1 Alabama and loses 41-9. I remember looking at my phone at the festival and seeing that the game had kicked off. And then I hadn't even got my phone back in my pocket before it buzzed again and said Alabama had already scored.
Oof.
They scored on their first play from scrimmage, a 75-yard touchdown run by Damian Harris.
That guy's too good. We talk about it every week, but every single time there's a play that makes me, I see a play of his every week that makes me just go, whoa. Like, how did that just happen?
Yeah, and the best part, when I got home the next day, I went back and watched the entire game. And I remember seeing that first play, and how right after they scored, they cut right to Brett Bielema's just dumb face. His mouth like wide open, just standing there like, what's going on? I swear they always cut to him, and he just looks like he has no idea where he is. He's just trying to figure out how this happened. Like, the contrast of sidelines cracked me up. It's Saban on one side, yelling for every tiny mistake, demanding perfection from his players, and then you've got Bert on the other side just trying to figure out what's going on. Anyways, on to the game. Cole Kelly got his first career start in Tuscaloosa against the number 1 Crimson Tide. Cole Kelly, the new quarterback for Arkansas. You know who else did that, Midge?
Who?
Brandon Allen, Austin's older brother.
Wow.
Who actually became one of the best quarterbacks in Arkansas history, believe it or not.
Wow.
Kelly did better than expected. He went 23 of 42 for 200 yards and a score, 1 interception. I mean, that's not insane, but that's not bad for a freshman start in Tuscaloosa. I'm glad they went ahead and started Kelly. O-line coach Kurt Anderson and the offensive line this year have all but ruined Allen's NFL career, and he just hasn't had a chance.
Yeah.
I mean, if he could have gotten protection, he could have easily been the best passer in the conference.
Yeah, no doubt. We've seen it. We've seen the proof of that.
Yeah, and right now I think Kelly is probably closer to starting every game this year than Allen is to coming back, to be honest. Arkansas's run game was awful. 27 yards on 29 runs. That's less than a yard a carry. And I think just above all else, it shows that it's desperation time for Brett. Arkansas ran the ball just 29 times, and they attempted 42 passes. That's really skewed from the normal Bird offense. Alabama recorded almost 500 yards of offense in this game, but no one is surprised by that. What I was surprised by were the 3 muffed punts.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about it all the time.
They only lost 1, but that's still a lot of special teams mistakes for a Saban team.
Right, we talk about the way to beat them is on special teams, and I mean, that in a bigger game, that's brutal. I bet some guys got chewed out for that.
Yeah, and speaking of special teams mistakes, Arkansas missed a PAT also on the garbage time touchdown.
It just makes that 9 just feel so much worse.
And the punter mishandled a snap and had to get the ball and panic throw it out of bounds to avoid being hit inside the 5 or possibly in the end zone for a safety, so that's fun. Overall, this game was basically just a scrimmage. I mean, it's just creating some buzz in an overall sad, angry, or apathetic fan base, so that's good, I guess. I mean, people were pretty happy with Cole Kelly's performance. I think they're just excited to see Allen maybe getting some rest and not about to die.
Oh, seriously.
And it just kind of gets them excited for the future, I guess. Next week, Alabama plays Tennessee, and it couldn't be even more of a bloodbath.
Yeah, you know my thoughts.
I'm taking Bama 48-10. I don't think they're going to score as many points as you do, but I would not be surprised if they scored that many.
We will certainly. I think yours is much more reasonable than mine. I just was kind of like, you know what? Go big or go home, I guess.
Yeah, and Arkansas goes home for just the third time in Week 8 to play Auburn. And they'll lose for the second time at home. I just don't see how this team gets past Auburn. The defense is going to give up big pass plays. The Auburn run game will impose its will on an Arkansas atrocious run defense.
You said that so eloquently. Atrocious run defense.
Yeah, Auburn's going to win. No question to me about it. No question.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is a fair assumption.
All right, well, we did something a little bit different this week we kind of want to get to. We opened up our Twitter to questions that you guys had that we would read or comments that you would read on the show. So we got a couple of them in here. Want to go ahead and read those. We got one from Brody, who is at Brody_Marino. He says, do you think Butch is gone after this game, or will he make it through the season?
Good question. I mean, that's a question it's so difficult to answer for me. What do you think?
I mean, I don't think that they'll fire him. I think they give him the whole year. But if they go in there and they don't score a point and they just get shellacked, I would say there's probably a 70-30 chance of it happening. Like 70% he stays, 30% they fire him.
I think I agree with that. I think that
the urge to fire him is there week by week, but I think they keep him.
I think that the sort of hot button games, in my opinion, because I agree with you. If they don't score a point, then, but I think also funny to point out. Now Alabama will have faced two extremely green quarterbacks in 2 weeks in a row. In Kelly and Gorentano, which is brutal.
The defense is loving that.
Yeah, but I think even though they're a good team, I think that Kentucky is a sort of more of a hot button, like, do we need to fire our coach this week game than Bama. And I think Vandy is the ultimate. If they drop that game, I mean, it'll just cap the season off, I definitely don't think that there's any way this team is bowl eligible with Kentucky, Missouri, LSU, and Vanderbilt all on the horizon.
No, I definitely don't think so. I think bowl eligibility is well behind him at this point.
Yeah, no doubt. So, I mean, I think it's just going to take one of those. I think Kentucky's just enough of they're going to hate fire him if they lose that game. You know what I mean?
Yes. Thanks, Brody, for your question.
Yeah, great
Appreciate
question.
you reaching out for us. We got one more. This one is from Tanner at Wanger for Prez. I like
nice.
that.
That's a great.
He actually replied to Brody. He says, "How many groomers is too much groomers?" Tanner, in my opinion, you can never get enough groomer.
No doubt. I completely agree. Never too much.
For those listeners who don't know what a groomer is a rumor of John Gruden coming to coach at a college. Right now, the Tennessee groomers are flying. He was spotted in Knoxville. He went to the game. So I think a lot of folks are really holding out for that. I don't think he shows up.
I'm hoping we at least
he never does.
Some chance. Some
chance. Yeah, I love groomers. I hope that they never die.
Oh, absolutely. No doubt. Whether it's... Yeah, we'll see. But that's a good question, honestly, because I'm not going to lie. Maybe it never happens, but I'm still curious. And I think that's the funnest part.
Well, Tanner, thank you for your question. Thank you so much, both of y'all, for hitting us up. We'll do the same thing next week, and hopefully we get some more questions in there. We love talking to you guys, interacting, so we just want to go ahead and thank y'all for that.
Definitely.
Yeah, and let's move on.
All right. Well, we're going to kick it over to the last East game I'll be covering, which is the Georgia-Missouri game. This was between the hedges. Georgia rolls ultimately after a pretty early scare to Missouri 53-28. After the absolute just gauntlet of upsets in Week 7, which we've covered, a lot of people, commentators included, were pretty hyped for a little Drew Lock Tigers upset. as they came between the hedges and put up 21 points in the first half against a defense that has allowed 10 points per game otherwise and has not given up more than 19, which was to Notre Dame on the year. Early on, it looked as if Missouri's defense was ready. They were containing the run a good bit. They had a clear game plan to force Jake Fromm to throw the ball, something that he hasn't had to do a ton this year. I think they weren't prepared for the fact that that Jim Chaney's game plan was to be more aggressive through the air. But down 7-0 halfway through the first, the Tigers forced an interception from Fromm in UGA territory that set up a 4-yard Missouri touchdown on a pretty solid shovel pass, honestly, right through the gap between some blockers to get some momentum going. The momentum was built on by two huge 63-yard, almost identical touchdown passes from Drew Lock to Emmanuel Hall. And it looked to me like this was going to be a shootout all the way to the end. I figured it was just, this was the time where someone's going to match Georgia in points. But all of a sudden, about halfway through the second quarter, the momentum just completely shifted. And I really just think, honestly, no bias, that Georgia's just a more complete team. I mean, Odom said it after the game.
Well, there's no bias. I mean, there's no bias there. I mean, that's just pretty much fact at this point.
Yeah, I mean, Odom said it after the game, and the Fromm and the offense were able to stay in step with the Tigers' hot start. They themselves had some big plays with the 35-yard McCole Hardman touchdown, which he's a guy that I touted in previews, and he finally had that big game, with Terry Godwin going down, getting hurt. He had this is crazy. He 2 receptions for 71 yards and a touchdown. He had a 35-yard touchdown rush, and he returned 3 punts for 66 yards.
All-purpose boy.
Yeah. That is your playmaker. That is one of your guys that is young, talented, super fast. But they also had a huge play on a 19-yard touchdown catch by Riley Ridley, which was just ballistic. He was going back on his foot, was over the shoulder, and just snagged the ball 1 foot in bounds. And a 36-yard run by Sony Michel, who just blew some people up. He was just running over everybody. He only had 9 touches, but for 86 yards and 2 touchdowns with a long of 36. There was one play, I put it up on the Twitter, where, those plays where you hear somebody's helmet hit somebody and it kind of makes you flinch, but even though you're an extremely long distance away.
Yes.
Most of that is usually defense, but it was like Herschel style, but with some 21st century flair to it. I don't know. Michelle is nuts. Anyway, back to the game. After Missouri tied the game up on the second huge Hall bomb, Georgia converted a 37-yard field goal to go up 24-21, and they just never looked back. They scored 26 unanswered points before Mizzou scored early in the fourth quarter. It just continues to impress me how good this Georgia team is at making adjustments mid-game and finding success outside their comfort zones. They absolutely got burned by Emmanuel Hall in those first 2 catches, but, that was it. And this is arguably the first time that they faced any huge adversity from an offense since the Notre Dame game, and the way the team handled it bodes well for their stake in tougher matchups, I think, down the road. I think that's the big takeaway. I'm looking at Auburn, I'm looking at Florida. If they can make these kind of adjustments and stay in games and match teams that come out really hot and stay with the momentum, that's what makes great teams. Just some takeaways for Georgia. Obviously, we've seen now that, this defense is absolutely nothing to pride yourself on beating, which I'll get into in a minute, but Fromm can throw the ball. He can keep up with a high-flying offense. He went 18 of 26 for 326 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 pick. The defense still showed up, honestly. 126 of Locke's 253 passing yards. He did have 4 touchdowns and a pick, which is bananas. Came on 2 throws. And the run game was absolutely stifled as the team ran for 59 yards and just averaged 2.5 a carry. The Dogs, they obviously can't allow deep balls like that. Again, they just got burned. But the fact that no other receiver besides Emmanuel Hall had more than 27 yards or 2 receptions is pretty encouraging. The bye could not come at a better time. Obviously, you can clearly tell that was designed for Florida and Georgia to have a bye and then play each other. But you got some Dogs that are banged up with Terry Godwin. He was hurt in this game, but he's practicing, and Trent Thompson's looking to make his comeback against Florida as well. Some takeaways from Missouri. Deep ball is super impressive. Drew Lock can absolutely sling it. Emmanuel Hall and Jamon Moore are studs, but if that's the only trick you got, I mean, I don't know how you can expect to win at all. I know Georgia's undefeated and first in the East, but they put up 696 yards of total offense in this game. That's ballistic. 326 in the air, 370 rushing yards. That's insane.
That is insane. That's almost 700 yards.
Yeah, I know. And they were maybe one tackle for loss away from 700 pretty much. The Missouri defense is abysmal. No sacks, 2 tackles for loss. They had the pick, but 700 yards. Give me a break.
Yeah, they're it's just no good.
That is brutal. Anyway, nope. Georgia remains undefeated, jumps to number 3, and they get the bye, as I stated, before the huge game in Jacksonville after Florida's bye as well. And I said this after I talked about the Florida game, but to get into it a little more, don't let any records or any of my past UGA caution fool you. This game is going to be a 100% good, clean hate, just like it always is. And there's absolutely nobody that can confidently or accurately predict what it's going to be like. It's going to be a whiskey-soaked bloodbath.
Hey, you know what you got to do with those records?
What?
You got to throw them out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's just... No, I don't really feel like next week, even when I talk about it, what am I going to say? It's just going to be a Georgia-Florida game, and that's all you can say. Missouri now drops to 1-5, winless in SEC play, and losing the last 5 straight. Whew. That's rough.
Yeah, Georgia and Missouri both need to get their whiskey out, but for very different reasons.
I hope Georgia waits at least 3 months before they get it out. But we got a lot more to do to earn some whiskey down there. But Missouri hosts the Idaho Vandals next week, who have only won 2 games themselves in what is likely to be one of the least watched games of the year. With their bypassed, they're going to travel to Connecticut later, and then they finish out the year with 4 straight SEC games, Florida, UT, Vandy, and Arkansas. So either this team is going to win 3 games at best on the year, or they're going to make some already downtrodden fan base feel that much worse. Look for the Tigers to be the nail in the coffin for at least one SEC coach before the season ends. I'm going to go ahead and say that I think that this team could very well be, as we talked before when we answered the Twitter question, this could be Butch's. If they lose Missouri, what I don't see a Butch surviving that, despite how good the offense can be at times. But yeah, I think somebody's going to get fired because of Missouri.
Well, I think that I think Florida is going to beat Missouri. I think Vanderbilt's going to beat Missouri. The UT and the Arkansas games, I don't feel so confident in.
I agree.
Like you said, I mean, you said Tennessee could lose to Missouri. I think Arkansas could really lose to Missouri.
And it's like later, so they're already
straight up, man. And we talked last week about how, I mean, dude, the Arkansas-Missouri game could be 2 teams trying to get their first win in the conference.
No doubt. Yeah, 100% agree with that.
And there's a good chance it could be Missouri.
We'll see. I mean, I think they definitely are going to have the more. I don't know what the deal is going to be with Allen, but I see him getting hurt again, unfortunately. So
yeah,
who even knows who's going to be the quarterback in that game?
Yeah, the defense is not helping Missouri at all in that game. It's in Fayetteville. We'll just have to see.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we can round it out with Mississippi State BYU if you're ready.
I am ready. We actually have 2 games in the West to get to.
Really?
Yeah, we got to talk about Vanderbilt Ole Miss.
Oh, that's right.
We got to talk about Vandy Ole Miss, and we got to talk about Mississippi State BYU. So buckle up,
let's
everybody.
Get into it.
It is the what is it called? I almost said Speed Racer, but it's the time trial. Here we go. Mitch, do you remember? Let's start out with Ole Miss and Vanderbilt. Do you remember what you said would happen in this game last week?
Refresh my memory.
You said Vandy would win 31-27.
I was wrong.
You know what I said?
What?
Vandy would win 28-20.
Oh, that's right. This was one of our close ones. That didn't happen.
Why do any of you listen to us? Like, literally at this point, what authority do we have to comment on any of this?
I think
what gives us the right to talk about this conference week in and week out when a team with no postseason to play for comes in and smacks down a team we thought was on the upswing at one point?
I think that there's something in our water supply in Nashville that just makes us think And we've gone to that stadium combined twice this year, so maybe we're drinking the Kool-Aid.
I think I was definitely drinking the Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
It's hard not to.
It is.
They're so cute, man. You want to like them. You do. They're like they're like the underdog of all underdogs, man.
And they're talented, and we talk about how, I mean, the uniforms are dope, and then but every single Saturday, it's just like, come on, man.
I mean, I used to live just 2 blocks away from that stadium. It's just like, I don't know. You want them to do well.
Yeah, I thought they would have at least, sent somebody home crying at this point that should have beat them, but nobody but Kansas. How do you feel if you're Kansas State at this point? What does that feel like?
Oh, boy. Not
Bad.
Good. Not good. Well, Vanderbilt's defense looked really bad in this game. They gave up 603 yards of offense, 57 points, which is, I mean, that's been Ole Miss's standard, except for the Alabama game. So you can't, I mean, that's to be expected, but still. Conversely, the Ole Miss defense just picked on Kyle Shermer. 7 sacks, 8 tackles for loss, and they forced a safety.
That's so bad.
That's so bad.
He was getting really beat up.
Yeah, he was. Let's talk about the Ole Miss offense real quick. They look really good against defenses that aren't Alabama's.
Yeah.
They scored 7 touchdowns in this game, and 2 of them were for over 50 yards. Having A.J. Brown back from injury is crucial to Ole Miss's success on offense. 8 catches for 174 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had 100 more yards than the next receiver. So Shea Patterson loves to throw him the ball. And they even got a run game going against Vanderbilt, man. And they've sucked in the run game all year long. They had 252 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground. Which brings me to my next point, which I think perfectly sums up this game. Ole Miss doubled 2 of their statistical points in this game versus Vanderbilt. Sacks, they had 7 in this game, and they had 7 up to this point in the year. And rushing touchdowns, 3 in this game, and they had 3 all year up to this point.
Whoa.
Isn't that crazy?
That's insane.
So Vanderbilt now sits at 3-4 on the year after starting 3-0, and like you said earlier, they lost 4 straight since beating Kansas State.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. Well,
No.
I was just going to say how lucky it is that they have the bye this week.
No,
it's a good opportunity for Derek Mason just to take a step back and see what's not working. It's the offensive line in the secondary, by the way, Derek.
Yeah.
That's what's not working.
Which are 2 points of pride that we took in our previews, I think, from what I remember. I mean, yeah, man, this is tough. It's really tough. 4 straight, and those have been all SEC games. I think that just based on the way the defense played in this one, that Missouri-Vanderbilt game might be 130 points combined. It might be like basketball scores.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we should do it. We should do a little thing to see who scores more combined points, the football teams or the basketball teams this year.
Right.
At least in that game.
Yeah. That would be really funny.
Yeah, well, they have 4 SEC opponents left to play. They play South Carolina, Kentucky, Missouri, and Tennessee, and 1 out of conference in Western Kentucky. They need to beat 2 of those SEC teams and win that Western Kentucky game to go to a bowl.
I think that's possible.
They're not going to beat South Carolina.
No.
They're not going to beat Kentucky. Their bowl chances lie in Missouri and Tennessee.
Which is unfortunate.
With me.
Because that's a shootout and an absolute mystery. Well, that Tennessee-Vandy game is always entertaining. But they beat them last year, so I mean if they might can beat
Kentucky, but I don't think so.
Kentucky is still kind of a mystery to me. I'm going to see them live this weekend in person play the Mississippi State Bulldogs. So we will certainly see how they look. But, yeah, I don't know, man. It's kind of like, I agree with you. It's either they're going to lose all 4 or they're going to win 2.
Ole Miss gets to chill with their old friend Ed and the Tigers next week. They get to hang out in Oxford. And like I said earlier, the Tigers are going to have this one 27-23, but it's going to take a good defense to get it done.
Definitely.
Well, moving right along to the last game of our show.
All right.
The Mississippi State Bulldogs beat the BYU Cougars 35-10 in Starkville. And look, I don't have a ton to say about this game.
Yeah, sure.
Because there's really not a ton to know. BYU sucks. They're one of the worst teams in the country, period.
Oof.
Which is hilarious because early in the season, we had this game as a toss-up.
Yeah.
Again, we're not very intelligent. But back to how much BYU sucks. They're ranked in the bottom 10 of the country in every single offensive statistic. Like, Todd Grantham could have just kept his defense on the bench, and statistically speaking, there's probably a 60% chance BYU still wouldn't have scored. Nick Fitzgerald played well, like we all expected him to. He had 240 yards in the air, another 103 on the ground. He was responsible for 4 touchdowns. Not too shabby. But he also threw 2 picks.
Yeah, that's bad.
Which isn't good against this crappy team, man. He needs to square that up quick.
Yeah.
The Bulldogs currently sit at a decent 4-2 on the year with 1-2 in the conference, and I think they'll go bowling with wins over UMass and Arkansas. But playing Kentucky next week could really decide on which way their season's going to go. If they lose, I think it could hurt their confidence going forward, especially since it's at home. But if they win, and they win big, it could vault them towards a pretty good record.
I agree with that. I think that they control their own destiny in a, non-SEC way. And, this game, in Starkville this week is going to be a huge, just sort of, I don't know. I haven't known what to do with this Mississippi State team since they got beat by Georgia and Auburn because it was just such a rough draw at that time in the season. And,
yeah, especially after they crushed LSU and then moved up in the rankings. We were like, oh, they're going to be really good.
Exactly. And now LSU's ranked and they're not, which is crazy. But, yeah, man. I'll have a lot to say about seeing them in person, but I do agree with you. I think this team goes to a mid-level bowl and calls it a pretty good year.
Yeah, the rest of the season is just kind of determining what kind of bowl they're going to go to.
Exactly.
Like, barring the bottom falling out of this team, are they going to go to, the Tax Slayer Bowl, or are they going to go to, a decent bowl?
Right, which is crazy.
It just depends.
Because, they are 5th in the West.
That's true.
Which is wild, but I think that's going to change. I totally agree. It's just crazy. The West, outside of Ole Miss and, Arkansas are just, it's closer. It's just closer than the East.
You don't have to apologize to me about how bad my team is, Mitch. It's not your fault.
Well, regardless. And then, did you have anything else as far as the West goes?
Yeah, well, I was just going to talk about Kentucky just for a brief moment.
Oh, no doubt.
Well, we've already talked a lot about them, but they're 5-1 coming off a bye. And they're going to be hungry, looking to go to 6-1, which is the last thing they want is for that loss column to go up. And like I've said for each Mississippi State game, if you stop Fitzgerald, you win the game.
Yeah.
It always happens that way.
It's true.
Personally, I don't think Kentucky can do it. From what I've seen from their front 7 all year, I just don't think they have what it takes to slow down Den Mullen's offense. Bulldogs win 31-21.
Wow. And at home. I agree with that. I think it's going to be a really good game, not just because I have tickets, but I think it'll be a fun one.
Bring your earplugs, man. Those cowbells are loud.
Oh, tell me about it. I'm going to have one. I'm going to be rocking the cowbell.
You're just going to buy into it, aren't you?
Yeah, my sister-in-law has a couple, and she was like, "You want one?" I was like, "Yeah, I want one." This might be my last chance to be part of the Bulldog faithful in Mississippi.
There you go. I do love going to a game where you don't have really a dog in the fight.
Right. It is interesting because Kentucky is second in the East, so it is something for me to think about. They are 5-1. If Kentucky wins this game, to me, they're just that little bit much more legit than everyone gives them credit for.
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. Well, that rounds us out, man.
Yeah, man. Just looking at rankings after this week, Bama, number 1, as usual. Georgia jumps up to number 3 in both the coaches and the AP, which makes me as a Bulldog fan very nervous but excited. Auburn is 21st, dropping from number 10 in both polls. And we got LSU, as we talked about controversially sneaking back into 24th in the AP and 25 in the coaches. We got Alabama and Auburn on top in the West, and we got Georgia and Kentucky on top in the East. It's quite a picture right now.
The East looks exactly like we thought it would.
Yeah, it really. But yeah, barring the Florida enigma, it is. It really does.
Well, I want to real quickly get to who took the biggest L.
Oh, please.
Because I love this segment. I'm having a lot of fun with doing it every week. And like we said earlier, we love interacting with y'all listeners. We think it's a lot of fun. I hope you guys think it's a lot of fun. So let's just go ahead and go through our contestants real quick. The Florida Gators obviously lose the game to the Aggies by 2 points, and they look even worse doing it. Vols dropped the game to the Gamecocks, 15-9 in Knoxville, and put another stamp on the end of the Butch Jones legacy, probably. And Auburn just, I don't know, man, gives LSU an early Christmas present in a 27-23 win in Death Valley. So, y'all, listeners, have decided, and with 70% of the votes, you have given it to the Auburn Tigers, and I could not agree more.
I agree. Most to lose, most at stake.
Yeah, that's all you got to say about that?
Yeah.
Well, any closing thoughts this week, Mitch?
Not really. It's just a lot of losses this week that just shook things up. The rankings are crazy. Yeah, we got a lot of teams on bye here coming up next week. So we'll be honing in on a few specific games, and we'll be just as excited as ever. We're in the thick of it, as we say.
We are definitely in the thick of it now.
Now we're in like I didn't think it could get much thicker, and now we're like in like, oh man, we're starting to get into bowl implication territory.
Yeah, and this is always the weirdest part of the year to me because like the MLB playoffs are happening right now,
which are so exciting.
Which are always exciting. The NBA just started.
Yeah, shout out to oh man.
Oh god.
I don't even have to say it.
I think we both went immediately. Yeah, for those of you that don't know, I don't know if we have any listeners that are basketball fans or NBA fans. I enjoy basketball. Gordon Hayward, man.
That's rough.
I hope that is not as bad as I think it is. That I don't want to say the phrase, but I mean that's hard to come back from. I don't know if you guys know, but he fell down awkwardly and just snapped his ankle like a toothpick. Mm-hmm. It's easy to find the video if you guys want to go look it up. Not safe for life.
It's too easy to find it.
Not safe for life. Not safe for anyone to watch. But still, yeah, just felt like I needed to get to that real quick.
I did have one. Oh, sorry. Do you have something you were gonna say?
I don't.
I did have one. Maybe we'll make this into a segment, but I had one just totally, completely hype-related question.
Hype train?
That is totally exaggerated, could be seen as totally unreasonable, but I just want to know what your reaction is. Do you think that if Tennessee fires Butch Jones, is Lane Kiffin anywhere in that picture on that higher list?
Oh, okay. Here's the thing. No. But if he did come back to Tennessee and made him good, could you imagine?
Oh man, how do you feel? Well, let me rephrase. If they offered it to him, do you think he would take it?
It depends on how much money they offer him.
You're absolutely right.
Because there's a lot of coaching vacancies that are going to be opening up at the end of 2017, and he's already kind of done that whole Tennessee thing and kind of dipped out for USC, and I just don't know how the fans. I mean, that would be such a weird. That would be so weird. That would make everything so awkward.
It'd be the weirdest thing ever.
I just don't know how the fans would react.
I feel like some of them, I don't know, be bad. It would not be good at all.
No, I don't think so. But if he started producing on the field, I think people would flip.
Yeah, I mean, Florida Atlantic lost a couple of games pretty bad, but to Navy and Wisconsin and Buffalo, close one. But they're 3-3. They're first in the Conference USA.
Yeah, that's kind of a talent thing, I think.
Yeah.
But I appreciate that. I hadn't thought about that possibility, but thank you.
Yeah, I was just reading an article about it, and I was like, I just can't avoid that thought of what if.
Real quick, I know this episode is running super long. Thank you all for listening. If you're still listening.
We only have like 10 more real quicks, promise.
Let's just real quick go through who would be a great coach for each of these teams that are kind of hot seats right now. Ooh. So let's just say for fun's sake, let's just say that Lane Kiffin goes to Tennessee. Who would be a great Missouri coach?
Butch Jones.
I think that's a hard one for me. I think maybe like an offensive coordinator somewhere that's looking to move up, or maybe like who's the coach at Western Kentucky right now? Like someone like that, you know?
Ooh, yeah. It's I know who you're talking about. Mike Sanford. That's
There
right.
you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone like him, I think, will be perfect.
I could see it.
You know, for Ole Miss, I think like, you know, what if like Matt Canada was the head coach there?
That would be interesting. I didn't think about that. I was trying to think about Missouri is like starting with the hardest one because I don't know what to make of the program. I mean, you got to have somebody that's
Yeah, that's a real toxic program to be going into right now.
right. To me, it's like you have the categories of what you do to get a new coach. You go for a up and coming assistant or coordinator. Do you promote from within, or do you go for like a glory hire? You know what I mean?
Yeah, because for me, it's like, I mean, is there a coach out there that might want to make a lateral move? Like, okay, like with Ole Miss, like, okay, so Ole Miss obviously has this postseason ban right now, but what if a coach like a DJ Durkin, for some reason, was just like, hey, let's just go, I want to go to the SEC and see what I can do up against Saban. I mean, he's doing all right at Maryland right now. He's made that team better.
They are a contender in every game.
I mean, I'm not saying that would happen, but I think that would be a stellar hire for Ole Miss.
Yeah, no kidding. That would be huge. Or, does a guy, and I'm only bringing this up because it's fun, but does a guy like Les Miles have a place back in the SEC? I mean, does he get a call from somebody?
I think he would do it immediately if he got an offer. I just don't think that anybody's going to offer.
I think he would have a lot of fun at Missouri, personally.
At Missouri, I think he would too. I think that would actually be a pretty good program for him.
Oh, I totally agree. Yeah, I mean, you got guys. So if we were going to settle on people just for the fun of it, I'm going to go Les. If I'm building my coach dream squad, I'm going to go Les at Missouri. Ole Miss, that's a good question.
Because we know Scott Frost is going to go to Nebraska because they're not super happy with Mike Riley right now.
Yeah.
That's his alma mater, so we know that that's going to happen there. So I just don't know. I don't know why DJ Durkin was the first one that came to my mind, but he just seems, in a weird way, in my screwed up mind, that would work.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. I think you got a lot of guys that I think are in good spots to go somewhere. I mean, you got Brent Venables, Clemson defensive coordinator, really solid assistant, great coach. Maybe a guy like that gets a call from one of these teams. I just Tennessee is the absolute hardest for me because I don't know what you do.
I wonder if Venables would coach at somewhere like Tennessee.
Right? I mean, you think about it and you're like, man, have a strong defense. I mean, let's just think about the people that guy's worked for. He's worked for Bill Snyder. He's worked for Bob Stoops, Dabo Swinney. Pretty good.
The fan base in Tennessee is chopping at the bit to get somebody who is proven and has that energy. Dude, that would be a home run hire.
Just with the Kirby Smart type of move to Georgia, I could see a Brent Venables kind of move to a school like Tennessee. Absolutely. I mean, just the studs that they've produced, the guys he's worked for, the pedigree, the national championship experience. I mean, be cool. Be interesting.
And then as far as Arkansas goes, I think at this point we've been beating this coaching search horse to death on our Razorbacks. I think at this point, I don't know. I feel like the safest bet would be Charlie Strong, but that terrifies me.
Ooh, I don't think that's a good idea. I mean, I think Charlie Strong is a great coach as a person, but that's just like asking for more of the same, but just with a little more integrity. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you're probably right. He's a good defensive coordinator. He's an Arkansas guy. I know he'd give it his all, but like, I totally agree with you. And then the only person, somebody dropped this in a thread and they got downvoted to oblivion. But Rhett Lashley, who's the head coach at UConn right now, he was the offensive coordinator at Auburn last year. He used to coach high school football in Arkansas. He's from Arkansas.
That's crazy.
Kind of grew up in that Malzahn system. Now, I don't know if Gus has totally just brainwashed him into hating Arkansas, which might be the case. But I think he would be amazing. He would take us in a new offensive direction that we've never seen.
You know what they could do? They could go in-state, grab Arkansas State head coach Blake Anderson.
They could do that.
Funny that from that school, they've turned out Hugh Freeze, Gus Malzahn, and Brian Harsin from Boise State, which is crazy.
Arkansas State is not a bad program.
Why not dip into that historical pool of talent? I mean, granted, Hugh Freeze has had a brutal end to his career, and that's his own fault. We have our mixed thoughts about Gus, but, I mean, fourth time's a charm.
Yeah, and the Arkansas State diehards really don't like Arkansas, so I think if we were to swoop up Blake Anderson, that would just be detrimental to our relationship. But I like where your head's at.
Yeah, who knows? Or they could just go wild card and just go somebody from up north, like you're saying.
Chip Kelly.
Nothing wrong with that. Honestly, I think that would be amazing.
That's the last. I think John Gruden's more likely to come coach at Arkansas than Chip Kelly is.
That's why I think it's amazing, because I would just be like, wow, he's really wearing the shirt. He is coaching there.
The only other guy that I would really want would be Jeff Brom, who's the current head coach at Purdue, but he just got to Purdue and he's really building something special there. I don't think he's going to leave.
I've looked up so many. It's so funny you say that. I've looked up so many coaches that I'm like, man, they're killing it. And it's, they're like for some of these coaching position openings, and you just see that, it's like, they've only been there a couple of years. It's like, that's what you need. Maybe that goes to show that you can look for stud firepower all you want, but I think getting a guy right when he's getting hot and right when he's ready to step in is maybe your golden ticket.
Well, we have, I guess, driven this train as far as it's going to go.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a fun conversation, though, and one that I hope we can continue and see some actual moves as the season goes on.
It is. I hope that what I really hope that happens is that we get to the end of the season and obviously we're going to have a lot of coaches let go, but I hope that they wait to do it a little bit before the bowl game starts so we have an opportunity to do a coaching episode.
Oh, no doubt. That would be so much fun.
I would love to just seriously sit and just talk about coaching possibilities for an entire episode, if you would be down.
Oh, absolutely. We should make do a coach draft for our for each team. Like, if you can draft, we got 20 guys available, and then we put them. If you're drafting like an NFL draft type of scenario,
that would be the episode we need to get Hattie B's to sponsor.
No doubt.
For the Hattie B's hot chicken hot seat special.
Draft edition.
Yeah,
That's
another
amazing.
Shout out to Hattie B's hot chicken. It's so good. A Nashville staple.
A Nashville staple.
Well, we have gone so far off the rails.
If you're still with us, thank you. And if you have any coaching thoughts, please let us know.
Yeah. Let us know why we are really dumb in talking about this and why we don't know who's going to go coach where and why you do.
Hey, who knows? And shout out to 101 Sports for some info on, I was just looking into who they're thinking about for the Missouri job. I was very curious, and it had a great list of candidates. Maybe I'll tweet it out so you guys can take a look and maybe offer your own thoughts.
Absolutely. We will put that up for you. Well, write to us at askthebottlecast@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter and now on Instagram at Bottlecast. Listen and subscribe to us on iTunes and SoundCloud. Please leave us a rating. That will be the best.
Yeah.
My name is Clint Childers. That guy's name is Mitch Davis, the Georgia Peach. Hey-yo.
And thank y'all so much for listening. We've had a lot of fun, and we can't wait for next week.
Cannot wait for next week. See you then.